Thinking, assuming, or believing you know what will happen next creates an unrealistic expectation in a specific outcome. What's wrong with an unrealistic expectation? Well, think about, let's say, expectations in relationship to the characteristics of humanity. This cuts across everybody and cuts across all cultural lines or barriers. Everyone, well, first of all, before we can get to that point, what is an expectation? An expectation is a mental representation. In other words, a belief, an assumption, or an opinion, or whatever, thinking, assuming, or believing, a mental representation of what the next moment, meaning next moment, next 5 seconds, or the next in 10 seconds, or the next hour, or whatever, is either going to, in the environment. In other words, we have a mental representation, and we have an external environment that expresses itself, okay? So my mental representation, meaning my expectation, if the environment shows up in a way that is consistent with what I believe, then what will my state of mind be? This is a universal characteristic of humanity. This isn't any different with anybody, anywhere. How will I feel? What will be my state of mind? What will be my experience? I'll be in a state of satisfaction, a state of well-being. I could be joyous. I could even end up in a state of euphoria. The degree to which the environment does not express itself in a way that's consistent with the way I think it's either going to look like, sound like, taste like, smell like, or feel like, okay? I will be in a state of dissatisfaction, a state of betrayal, disgust, anger, fear, terror. Your ability to create consistent results as a trader is all about what you expect. When you change your expectations to be consistent with the way the environment, the market environment exists, the fear will go away. When you change your expectations in a way that's consistent with the way the actual market environment exists, your fear will go away. And you'll be able to do exactly what you need to do when you need to do it, without conflict, without hesitation, and be able to close that profit gap between what your methodology will give you and what you end up with in your bottom line. Unrealistic expectations cause us to define and interpret and therefore perceive market information as threatening. Ultimately, we can break the market down to its lowest definable component parts. If we break the market down to its lowest definable component parts, what we end up with is up and down ticks. Okay? An uptick is one incremental price change where the price moved from 1 to 2, from 2 to 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever, and then down ticks. Okay? When we're operating out of unrealistic expectations, we're going to tap into 4 primary trading fears that will cause all the errors that we make as traders. Those fears are the fear of being wrong, losing money, missing out, and leaving money on the table. And those fears will actually cause us to perceive these up and down ticks as threatening. And what we're going to learn about the nature of fear a little later is that fear will cause us to focus on the object of our fear so that we end up creating the very experience we're trying to avoid. Therefore, if I'm afraid of being wrong, I will actually perceive this information in a way that causes me to be wrong. If I'm afraid of losing, I will perceive these up and down ticks in a way that will actually cause me to lose. If I'm afraid of missing out, I'll actually create the experience of missing out. And if I'm afraid of leaving money on the table, that's exactly what I'll end up doing. Now, when you think about the nature of these up and down ticks and the photons that appear on your computer screens, Is there an inherent characteristic in that information that's threatening in any way? In other words, is it information? In other words, when we talk about the nature of emotional pain, which is the threat of pain, okay, the fear, not physical pain, where we have all of us have a normal nervous system, and we come into contact with a physical object. If I hit this with my arm, it's going to hurt. If you hit it with your arm, it's going to hurt. So we've got some universal commonality. But with emotional pain, it's not that way at all. Although we think that it is, it's not. Because emotional pain requires an interpretation. And then interpretation comes from what we believe. You guys with me on this, on the interpretation part? Because see, the information itself, the up and down ticks, have no charge to them whatsoever. They're not positively or negatively charged. They're just up and down ticks. That based on your ability to read those up and down ticks tell you what the potential is for the market to move in any particular direction. If you're perceiving them as threatening in some way, that's definitely going to cause you problems when it comes to creating consistent results. In fact, you're going to find it impossible.